Hey everyone, today we're going to talk a little bit about this little device in my palm. This is the Raspberry Pi Zero W. I think it's a very fun gadget to tinker around with. In this little tiny board, which only costs around 16 Singapore dollars, you have a 1 gigahertz processor, it comes with 512 megabytes of RAM, it comes with a micro SD slot, it comes with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPIO pins for you to connect any amount of sensors and stuff if you're doing kind of cool projects and all that. And all of it is powered off a simple micro USB connector that you can connect to like any normal like 5 volt power source. Basically, any USB charger that works for your phone, for example, would work for this. And basically, what I'm doing today is I'm gonna use this to power my curtains, which is just like one portion of this entire smart home project that I'm doing. So the first portion is to use this to control my smart home curtains by creating a server that can control my curtains, my roller blinds through API. And eventually I kind of want to run a bunch of other services on this as well to complete this smart home setup. So this is the Raspberry Pi website. Over here you can download the Raspberry Pi Imager, which is a really convenient utility that you can use to download the operating system and then set up the micro SD with the OS. Then once you plug in the micro SD, you can basically boot up the Raspberry Pi. So for us, we're gonna choose the Raspbian Lite OS. So this one does not have a desktop. So if I connected it via HDMI cable to my monitor, for example, I would not have a desktop GUI interface. There will be no GUI interface. It will only be command line. Which, anyway, we're going to run this headless, which means I'm not going to hook it up to any monitor. I'll just be accessing this remotely from my other computers. So I don't think I need the desktop at all. In fact, as light as possible will be better, because we really want to run a whole bunch of other smart home services on this device in the long run. So yeah, just choose the Raspbian Lite option under operating system, choose your targeted SD card, and let this thing do its magic, and then after that we can move on to the next step. So we kind of want to run this device headless, right? Which means I need to set up some default configurations. First of all, I want to enable SSH access. so that I can remote in via my Mac terminal. I also want to set up the Wi-Fi settings so that the Raspberry Pi automatically connects to my Wi-Fi network. Desertbot.io has a really convenient guide to how to set up your Raspberry Pi in a headless mode, so you can kind of follow through the steps. But yeah, basically we need to drop in a SSH file into the root of the microSD card, as well as another file, the WPA supplicant, to set up the configurations for the Wi-Fi network. So on this portion, right, I actually struggled for quite a bit. I spent quite a few days of struggling through and troubleshooting why my Raspberry Pi was not connecting to my Wi-Fi network and why I couldn't access it remotely. And eventually I figured out that it had nothing to do with my configuration files. It was actually the power supply. I had it connected to this power strip that had USB ports that I was using to power my Google Home, my IR controller. But surprisingly, when I connected it to the Pi Zero, there was not enough power going to the Pi Zero to power it sufficiently to make a successful Wi-Fi connection. So after I switched it over to a different power supply, it was working fine. So that's something for you to note as well. Just make sure that your power supply is a proper 5V one. So once everything is set up and you've gotten the IP address of your Raspberry Pi, for this one I just popped into my Unify dashboard to grab the IP settings from the client list. You can proceed to SSH into the device, and from here you will want to go into the default Raspberry Pi configuration menu to do things like change the password, change the network device name, etc. I won't go into too much detail. You can check out any number of resources online to see what else you may want to change for your own Raspberry Pi. Next up are a couple of required utilities. So I installed Git so that I will be able to git clone the scripts that I'll be using to control my AM43 window blinds motor. And after installing Git, I also set up the SSH key access to my GitHub account. With Git installed, you can now easily git clone the scripts that you need. In this case, I'm using the Python script written by the Baseman. He wrote a pretty sweet, simple Python script dedicated for exactly this Raspberry Pi Zero W. So it's pretty lightweight and it works quite nicely without too much effort. So in order to run this Python script, right, you do need a couple of prerequisite modules. First of all, you'll want to install Python 3pip. This is basically a Python package manager that you'll be using to install a number of the other Python modules that you'll require. Next, you'll want to install bluepy. This will allow the Python script to basically access the Bluetooth functionality on your device. You'll also need to install Flask, which is what the Python script uses to run a simple HTTP server to host the API. The script also requires this module called retrying. Just install it. Now with everything installed properly, right, you'll want to run BLE scan. This will allow you to check for the MAC address of your window blinds, and then you'll be able to set up the configuration file. Right, now let's test out the API and see if it can open and close our window blinds. Yeah, and everything works. Great! And yeah, that's all for today. If you like this video, do hit the like button. And if you want to continue on this budget smart home journey together with me, do hit the subscribe button as well, as I continue to tinker with more and more stuff over the next few weekends while I build up this ultimate budget smart home. That's all for today, so thank you for watching!